السلام على التسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين عليهم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear sisters, my dear brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. There was a married couple, fictional characters, with the name of Zayd and Fatima. They were happily married, but they had a particular problem. This particular problem was that Fatima always complained that Zayd, when he drives the car, he speeds. Yes? And when they go on different journeys together, they usually have a fight, because she tells him that you are speeding and I'm scared when you speed. He says, well, you don't trust me, do you? You never trust me. You never trust me as a safe driver. I've never had an accident before, so I must be a good driver. But she says that you don't even care about my feelings. Yes? So then she becomes scared and quite emotional. He becomes angry, and this is a usual conflict between them because he loves to drive his car quite fast. She gets scared when he drives fast, so they usually have a clash. Yes? That's who? That's Zayd and Fatima. We have another couple, yes? Another couple with the name of Maryam and Hassan, right? Maryam and Hassan, they both are also happily married, yes? They both happily married, but they go to work together in the car, yes? So in the morning, Hassan drops Maryam to her workplace, and then he goes to his workplace. The same scenario is that this happens every morning, where Hassan waits in the car for Maryam to come, and Hassan is getting stressed because she is always late to come to the car, right? And he keeps on beeping, right? And then she comes into the car. He says, you do this every day. So he starts to drive very fast because they're late for work. Yeah. So he starts to drive very, very fast, and they have an argument. Nearly every morning they have an argument. And he says, why are you always late? She says, well, we have one bathroom. You always go to take a shower first, and then you take so long, and then I have to go. So you have an advantage. And also you've left the plates unclean in the day before. So in the morning, I have to go and clean them. And you just go in the car and start beeping at me. And that's not right. But they have an argument about this. She becomes emotional. She starts crying. He reaches the destination where Maryam works, right? He drops her. They don't talk to each other. This is normal day, typical day in their life. And then he goes home quite angry. Two scenarios, quite similar, aren't they? Now, the issue is that one of these stories, we've had two stories, right? One of them is who? Zayd and Fatima. Zayd and Fatima, right? Zayd and Fatima, they have always problems. She says that you don't trust me. He says you don't trust me. She says that I am scared. You don't care about my feelings. Always he drives fast. Whereas we have Maryam and Hassan in the morning, right? He drops her to work, and she's always late to come to the car when he drops her to work, right? These particular two scenarios are quite different but similar at the same time. Now, one of them, my dear brothers and sisters, is what we call an unsolvable problem. Yes? And the other one is what we call a solvable problem. What are the difference? The difference is that this particular problem that is unsolvable is always reoccurring, yes? And also that it seems to really hit the core of that particular relationship. That they always fight about certain issues when it's related to what, for example, certain core components of a relationship. So the first one is he said, you don't trust me. So it's about trust. That's a big one in a relationship, isn't it? Trust is a big one in a relationship, right? She said that you don't care about my feelings. That's another huge one. Feelings, right? I feel insecure. That's a big one, right? So when it comes to these particular core components of a relationship, and when they have a conflict on these particular components of a relationship, then this problem is labeled as unsolvable, because it's quite actually not, the issue isn't about driving fast. The issue is about trust. So there are other instances where they also don't trust each other. It's not about really driving fast. Yes. The issue is about, he doesn't care about her feelings. You know, when she becomes angry, when she becomes emotional. Remember, he doesn't have emotional intelligence, right? We talked about that, right? So therefore, it's much more of a bigger problem, so to speak, right? So this is what it's called as an unsolvable problem, right? As much as they try to solve it, they can't, because there's a trust problem. There is a lack of appreciating the other partner's feelings. Yeah. Whereas the other one, so this one is who? Zayd and Fatima. That's an unsolvable problem. You guys with me? Right? Whereas Hassan and Maryam is labeled as a solvable problem, because when they get up, when they go in that particular journey, they haven't accused each other of these particular strong components in a relationship. They've just said, well, you're always late, right? And the reason why you're late is because, you know, he's not cleaning the night before, so therefore she has to go and clean. And they have got one bathroom. So it's a solvable problem. You can, maybe she wakes up before him, 15 minutes before, because they seem to both of them wake up at the same time. So they both go to the bathroom at the same time, right? And they got one bathroom, right? And so one of them has to be late. So maybe they can solve it by putting the clock 15 minutes early. One of them gets out of bed 15 minutes earlier than the other. That's a solvable problem. But essentially, right? They haven't accused each other of these particular components, core components, right, that are essential in a marriage. Now, today's talk, my dear brothers and sisters, is we're going to explore the concept of unsolvable problems. Yes? And whoever is married here, and whoever, inshallah, will get married in the future, will, of course, experience these particular unsolvable problems. And the question we want to ask is, can we solve these unsolvable problems, or we can't? And if we can't solve the unsolvable problems, you're going to hear a lot about solve unsolvable in this talk, right? If you can't solve the unsolvable, should we just get divorced? Is this an excuse for us to get divorced? Because should Zayd and Fatima get divorced because they don't trust each other? I mean, she said, you don't trust me. He said, you don't trust me. And she said, you don't care about my feelings. These are core components, right? Should they get divorced because they have an unsolvable problem, right? Unfortunately, we have a rise. I don't have statistics on this. I usually have statistics, right? But it's very difficult to get these stats. But in my educated guess, I can see a lot of cases of divorce, right? Because of these unsolvable problems, we give up very quickly, right? The question is, can we have a happy marriage with these unsolvable problems or not? Yeah? Can I live with my partner, with my wife or husband? Of course, a man marries a woman marries a man. Yes, that's how it goes. Just to make sure. أحسن الله إليكم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So what is the problem? As we usually start our talks, we are trying to find solutions to challenges that we face in society. So the problem here is that unsolvable problems are causing friction and divorce in marriages. That's the problem here. So as a community, we use the opportunity during Muharram when people come, right, and listen, to come up with solutions to these problems. At least raise it to the surface, so people can understand it, yeah? Just a quick note, my dear brothers and sisters. Some people might think that, why are you not talking about history, right? Why are you not talking about jurisprudential issues? Why are you not, things like that? I believe that during Muharram time, right, it is important, and I believe the mission of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was to change society, change the community, right? We must follow that particular mission. During our first 10 days, we must try to find out what are our challenges so we can become the community of Al-Hussein alayhi salam. Yes? And so inshallah, that is why every night we are trying to find what are the causes, what are the problems, and find inshallah solutions to these issues. Right. So, we have solvable and unsolvable problems. Solvable is a solution can be found, as I said with that particular example. So, for example, a husband, maybe they can, sorry, Brother Rasul. A solution can be found, right? So that a husband is, perhaps an example, husband is helping out, is not really helping out at home. Right? And the wife continuously says, why don't you help out? It's not just my duty to help out, right? Why don't you help out in the house, right? Some men don't even know where the vacuum cleaner is. Yeah? Some men don't even know how to put dishes in the dishwasher. True or false? Yes? True or false? Yes? False? True. True, right? It's true. They don't even know how to do it, right? They don't even know where to put the dishwasher liquid thing inside the dishwasher. Where do you put that thing? Right? Therefore, it's important, for example, that the man helps out in the house. But is this an unsolvable problem? No, it's a solvable problem. Baba, you just sit down with him and tell him, show him, where do you put this tablet? Where is the vacuum cleaner? And tell him it's not rocket science. Yeah, they can negotiate. They can talk about it. But whereas unsolvable problems comes in, is you've got an underlying issue that's actually fueling your dispute. So for example, another example of an unsolvable problem is someone loves to spend and the other wants to save. Yes? You guys with me? Right? Where we sometimes have individuals where they were not created, but they were brought up in a family where they always have to save. So therefore, when they get married, they gotta always save money. They say, no, don't spend on this. Let's go, okay, well, let's go out, huh? Can we not eat at home? Let's make tuna sandwiches. Yeah, because that's £50 I will spend in the Iranian restaurant, but at home, that's probably £2 tuna sandwiches. So it's probably better, right? Probably I'm exaggerating. But okay, maybe timman fasuliyah or timman qima, right? I haven't had timman qima. I should have timman qima, right? So therefore, it's what it is. It's a big problem. It's a core problem because it's in their foundations. Yes. Maybe the wife's got a credit card. She goes and spends. The man comes and says, "Whoa! I've looked at the statement, the bank statement, and it's heavy. You spent on this. You spent on dress. How many shoes do you have, for goodness sake? Right? How many handbags do you have? Isn't one enough? Okay, 2, but not 20." Right? Oh no, I found it in sale. But still, that's money you're spending, right? So, but there is a difference between being a bit tight and trying not to splash out on a lot of things, right? You've got to try to take the balance. So that's an unsolvable problem because it hits the core of that particular relationship. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I want your participation, as we do in our majalis, atypically, right? Is I'm going to show you 3 or 4 scenarios, and I want you to shout out whether you think this is a solvable or an unsolvable problem. The purpose of this is because it is difficult to try to distinguish between the two. Yeah. So I want you to try your best to figure out what is a solvable and what is an unsolvable problem. Yes. So this is the first scenario. The first scenario is someone called Jalal. His job is to take rubbish out. Every night, his job is to take the rubbish out. For several weeks, he has not done it. Nadia, his wife, is raged. She's angry. She wakes up in the morning and finds out that he hasn't taken the rubbish out and it smells in the house. Several weeks has been happening. Is this a solvable or an unsolvable problem? Solvable? Anyone says unsolvable? Okay. So it's a solvable problem, yes? Because why? Yes, it's a solvable problem. Because you can, Baba, put a reminder, put in the fridge, Jalal, take the rubbish out. You know, it's a reminder. He's not doing it. There isn't anything core, not affecting the core of the relationship. Yes? Okay, let's go for another one. Zainab wants to spend less time with her husband and more time with her friends. She finds her husband a bit boring. Yeah, he's not, he doesn't stimulate her, right? He actually really needs her. He wants to sit down with her, but she doesn't want to sit down with him, right? She finds him a bit boring. She's more excited with her friends, right? But she feels suffocated by him when she sits down with him. Solvable or unsolvable? Solvable? Unsolvable. Right. Because that hits the core of the relationship. So that is an unsolvable problem. So another one is that Abdul always shouts at his wife when they disagree. Yeah? And she finds it scary and tells him to stop. He says there is nothing wrong with shouting. His wife gets emotional. So when they have an argument, he usually starts to scream. This is how he does things. He's quite angry. And sometimes not even in anger. Some men are not even angry, but they speak very loud. Yeah, they've got this thing where they put up the volume and then they put up the down volume, right? So they speak very loud. And, in this particular instance, his wife feels scared when she is confronted. Solvable or unsolvable? Unsolvable. Unsolvable. Right? Yes. Unsolvable. The final one is that Ali, that's not me. Ali thinks his wife is too religious and not doing her duties at work. His wife says, I have to give my time to myself and I've got to be spiritual. And complains that actually Ali is not spiritual enough. There are instances where the husband doesn't even want his wife to wear the hijab. There are instances where he wants her to be quite fashionable, going out, etc. You're becoming too religious. Why are you praying too much? Yes? I've recently heard of a particular instance, right? So, solvable or unsolvable? I can hear two. I can hear half. Put your hand up if you think it's unsolvable. Put your hand up if you think it's solvable. Interesting. See, I wanted to put that at the last one so we can find out. To be quite honest with you, that's a very tricky one, isn't it? Because it's Ali can actually be spoken to in the best possible way to try to give him some sort of spirituality boost, because we all need spirituality boost, and recognizes that. Whereas his wife, she also needs to also recognize that she needs to do care about the well-being of her kids and her husband, and also needs to sort of do her duties. They both need to do their duties. But when it comes to spirituality, that's a big one. I actually believe this is an unsolvable problem. It is an unsolvable problem because you're actually, going to the core of the problem, which is spirituality. And in a relationship, you've got to be aligned spiritually, shouldn't you? You've got to be aligned spiritually. And if you're not aligned spiritually, then that is actually quite a big one. Yeah, but I'm happy to be told different. So it can possibly be solvable. So you see, there is the problem here, that sometimes it's a bit of a grey area. It's not black and white. That's why I wanted to give you some examples. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Okay, so let me just try to give it to you clearly in terms of unsolvable. Let's go through some examples. So the work that is being done, it's by this particular individual called John Gottman. This book, anyone read this book? Right? So one person, the 7 principles for making marriage work. Right? So there's 2 books I'm recommending today. So there's this book. It's actually written in the 1980s, I believe, right? So it's quite old, right? But it talks about solvable and unsolvable problems. So he's done a lot of research, interviewed many couples and found out and gave his conclusion. And there's also another book recently published by two of people in our community, in the Khoja community, called Abbas and Shaheen Mirali, building a successful relationship, right? So they talk a lot about really interesting things and also about the intimate relationship between the couple. Yes, I'm not going to talk about it now. I know there is age restriction, but this is very interesting, right? And we shouldn't shy away from talking about our intimate relationships. Yes, and there are huge problems regarding intimacy, right? And they go into details into these things. So I highly recommend you also will read this book, inshallah. So one of the unsolvable problems is punctuality. So one is habitually running behind and the other wants to be early, right? It's in their core because they've actually been brought up always to be late. And it's very difficult to change that. Very, very difficult. So punctuality can be an unsolvable problem. Finances, as we said, one is actually a spender. The other one is a saver. Social. We have extroverted and introverted, isn't it? I think my marriage is an extrovert-introverted marriage, right? I don't want to tell you who's extroverted, who's introverted, right? But one is extroverted. I think the other is introverted. We have an unsolvable problem. Yeah, we have an unsolvable problem in my marriage. Yeah. Number 4, spiritually, as we've just highlighted, one is religious and the other does not care about religion. Another one is time together. Remember the other example I gave, right? Wants to spend time together. The other one says, no, I want to go and meet my friends. I don't want to sit down together. You're quite boring, right? I want a partner that excites me, right? In-laws. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا in-laws. Right? So in-laws, there's huge problems with in-laws. I don't know why, but there are always problems with in-laws, right? And for those who are not married, may Allah give you the blessings of great in-laws, right? So the blessing, the in-laws is always an issue that the mother-in-law says certain things, and the father-in-law says. Usually it's the mother-in-laws. I don't know why, but usually it's the mother-in-laws. So wants to, for example, visit family, the other doesn't want to. Say, okay, so on a Sunday, all right. So the wife says, we've got to go and visit my family because you visited your family yesterday. And you say, oh, do I have to? And say, yeah, you have to visit my family. And then so it becomes quite problematic. And then because this is the core. It's a core of a particular relationship. Yes. By the way, it could be solvable. It could be solvable. Parenting. One parent says, I am authoritarian. I want to make sure that, don't do this, do that. The other one says, well, look, just give them opportunities, give them a bit of freedom. Right? So they always clash. It's quite a core component, right? And finally, cleanliness and organization. One is organized, always on time, wants everything clean in the house. The other one is a bit messy, all over the place, right? And the bed, they leave it messy. Everything else is messy, right? They've got a messy lifestyle, right? It's quite a core issue in their relationship, yes? You see, the thing is, my dear brothers and sisters, that what is unsolvable for me can be solvable for you. So there is not black and white. Do you guys get this? Right? So you have your own unsolvable problems. So if I was to sit down with an individual, for example, in this community, and I will list out all my unsolvables, he will list out all his unsolvables, will probably be different. If he was to tell me, look, my unsolvable is organization and cleanliness. And I'll tell him, no, that's solvable for me. That's not a problem for me. Problem is, I'll just train myself to be, cleaner, and I always remind myself to be cleaner. That's not. But my unsolvable issue is the issue of in-laws, man. It's a huge thing for me. The other person says, no, in-laws is really easy for me. It's fine. So don't think, these are just examples, yeah? Don't think that that's it, they're all unsolvable. They could be solvable for you, right? But I want you to go, and I invite you to go and sit down with your spouse, right? And go through what are your unsolvables. And inshallah, we're going to go through how to try to come up with strategies in unsolvable problems. Now, John Gottman, this particular person, I showed you the book, The 7 Principles. He actually has done the study and he said 69% of relationship conflict is unsolvable. So 2/3 of your problems are actually unsolvable. If the equation says that if we have an unsolvable, so therefore we should divorce, that means that 2/3 of people all around the world, the married couples, should get divorced. Yes? That's not true. The point here, my dear brothers and sisters, is that you can have a happy marriage while still having unsolvable problems. That's the core. You can still love each other while still having unsolvable problems. The problem is that when I have an unsolvable problem, I say, first option, divorce. I don't want to stay with this person anymore. She just destroys me, kills me. She's so dirty. I need things organized, right? She's just, driving me crazy here, right? Is this a reason for me to just leave the house and go away? Or is this a reason for me to always cause conflict, right? It's an unsolvable problem. Guys, remember, one is from Mars, one is from Venus. They're completely different planets here. In fact, I think we're different creatures. Yeah? One is a different creature, the other one is a different creature. We have different brain styles. We think differently. One has more emotions, the other has less emotions. Yes? We think, we take things differently. I'm not saying one is good, one or the other. They're both good. But it's a different style of thinking. Yes? But this is a project. It's a bit like it's a bit like it can be a successful project. But from the outside, if an alien was to come and say, how can these two get together? One is from Mars, one is from Venus. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will build this particular relationship with what? With rahmah, with mercy, and with love, mawaddah. Isn't it? If you come together, I know you will find unsolvable problems between you two. But I will create this mercy so that you can forgive each other. Yes? The question is, should we actually try to solve these unsolvables, the 69%, or should we just go on with them? Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So he says, Gottman says, that you don't have to resolve your major marital conflicts for your marriage to thrive. You don't have to solve it. Yes? The 69%, you don't have to solve it. If Zayd and Fatima have this particular issue that he always speeds, she is scared because she tells him that he says, you don't trust me. She says that you don't care about my feelings. Yes? You can never solve this particular problem because he always wants to speed, right? Maybe it is a solvable for someone else, but for these two, remember, don't mix the two. Maybe for you, you'll start to think, well, why doesn't Zayd sort of slow down if he's making his wife scared, man? That's for you. But Zayd doesn't think like that. Zayd is a different person. He's entitled to think however he wants. For them, for this specific, unique couple, that's an unsolvable problem, right? Does that mean that they should always fight about it, right? So what's the solution? Should we find solutions or not? He says no. You don't need to find solutions. But there are coping mechanisms. So let me inshallah, we go through them. So, the issue, before I go through them, there is a danger, my dear brothers and sisters, that if you do not have a coping mechanism for your unsolvable problems, you will reach something called gridlock, where the problem will actually explode. And this, if you reach gridlock with your spouse, in many instances of your problem, this is when people usually divorce. People usually divorce when they reach gridlock. Gridlock is when you have an unsolvable problem that you don't have a coping mechanism to try to not solve it. Remember, you're not solving the unsolvable, but you're trying to come up with a coping mechanism. Because you two know each other now. You know that he speeds and you don't like him speeding. You must know that she feels scared when I speed. So you've got to come up with a coping mechanism, right? That maybe that she sits down in the front and tries to read a book or listen to something else, or not look at the road, right? Or he has to try to find out how he speaks to her, right? If she is scared, he has to know how to speak to her. But he's never ever going to reduce that speed, because that's Zayd for you. I mean, I would come and argue, Zayd, Baba, reduce your speed. But that's Zayd for you. He will always want to, he finds himself as a safe driver. He's never had an accident, right? So he wants to do that. So they'll come with a coping strategy so that they don't always clash. Do you guys get it? Yeah? But if they don't, they will reach gridlock. No trust. You don't care about my feelings. This will be exaggerated more and more and more until they start to think, I can't live with you anymore. When it's gridlock, unfortunately, it can reach the end. So we must try to prevent reaching gridlock. Not find solutions to unsolvables, but make sure you don't reach gridlock. So what are signs of gridlock? You've had the same argument again and again and again with no resolution. Yeah? Compromise is impossible. You can't compromise at all. Remember, compromise is not solution. It's a compromise. Yeah? Talking about the problem becomes devoid of humor, amusement, or affection. Sometimes what he says that the unsolvable problems, just talk about it, but in a funny way. Oh, you always speed. It's not so nice, not nice. He said, well, yeah, just make a humor, make some sort of a joke about it. Diffuses the problem, diffuses the solution. It's not solution, but it sort of diffuses the whole issue, right? The problem is making you disengage from each other. That is when these are the signs of gridlock, right? So, ways out of gridlock. You've got unsolvable, then you've got to come up, you customize your own solution. Your own coping strategy. You've got to come up with a coping strategy. Guys, we've got to talk to each other. Husband and wife got to talk to each other, communicate with each other, come up with coping mechanisms, know each other. Inside out, you must know each other. I told you, one is from one planet, the other was from another planet. If you don't come up with coping mechanisms, you will continuously clash and come up with so many unsolvable problems until it piles up, reaches gridlock, and then you'll divorce or hate each other. And you don't even want to talk to each other. One wants to go with her friends, the other one wants to go with his friends, and they hardly communicate to each other. I know couples that hardly speak to each other, in fact. Right? They don't find any shared common ground or anything. And then once you come up with this coping strategy, you actively cope with the unsolvable problem. Yes. So, inshallah, I'll give you 4 ways to cope with unsolvable problems. The first one is, let's have a constructive dialogue, right? How many of us, so let's go back to our examples. How many of us have actually used the speak and listen technique? I've tried it. It's so hard. So what does that mean? So this means, right, that I come and sit down with my wife and I say, look, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, whatever minutes you want, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm going to go quiet completely. You don't say, completely. And I'm going to let you speak about your feelings. Tell me how you feel. Just explain to me how you feel. Tell me about your feelings, right? But I don't want you to do blaming. I don't want you, because you said this to me, because you did this to me, because of, no blaming. Just explain your feelings. How do you feel? Talk to me, right? But I won't say anything. So she can say, well, yesterday, when we had this particular issue that I told you to let's go to my in-laws, but then it didn't happen. I felt extremely sad, right? And I felt very, very emotional, right? And it hurt me quite a bit. Hurt, emotional, sadness. These are all feelings, yes? She's expressing her feelings. Once she finishes, she has to go quiet. He speaks for around 3 minutes. Well, regarding that particular issue, I'm sorry that you felt quite sad, but I feel uncomfortable going to your mother's, because when I go there, they say this to me, and it feels uncomfortable for me, right? But it's not blaming each other. They're trying to understand each other's stance. It's an unsolvable problem in laws. But let's talk to each other about it. Use the speak and listen technique. Let's not to criticize each other, as I said, and not be judgmental when we have this constructive dialogue. Yes? You guys with me? Have a constructive dialogue with an unsolvable problem. So the first thing is you list your unsolvable problems. Next thing is, the first technique is you try to have a constructive dialogue with each other. Find a coping mechanism. And one of the coping mechanisms is have a dialogue. The second one is try to reach a particular compromise. Yes? So the goal is to remove that hurt inside Fatima's heart, right? Not to solve the problem. So if you are Zaid, right, you've got to try to remove that hurtness, and inside her she's quite hurt because you speed and she feels very scared. And it isn't just that; it's the way that you react to her and the way you speak to her as well, right? So the goal is to remove that particular hurt from her heart. Yes, and again, just say, I'm sorry that you feel that, but this is my dream to always drive very fast. It's my dream. Since I was very young, I've loved cars and I've got a sports car and I love to drive it. But if I don't do that, then actually it will stop me from pursuing my dream. Yes, but I'm very, very sorry to hurt you. Is there anything I can do to remove that particular hurt from your heart? So have a dialogue, have that particular dialogue, and try to reach a compromise. And you're not finding a solution. So maybe she says, well, look, I can't take it anymore, this driving very fast. Maybe you can slow it down a bit, right? Slow it down a bit. You can still go fast, but slow down a bit. Yes? So reach a particular compromise. But again, through dialogue. Try to find some common ground. And of course, have mercy towards each other. As we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, you've all read this verse, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ, and He has created between you two what? مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. So therefore, He has created this mercy. He's created the mercy. You've just got to find it. As we said last time, if we want to get closer to Allah, we've got to practice His attributes. And one of the attributes He has given us is being forgiving, mercy, right? So I've got to be merciful. بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And once I am merciful, then I can love. You see, the issue is with this mercy and love is if you are merciful, you'll love each other more. And if you love each other more, you'll become more merciful. Yes? Can you see that? Right? And some people say, how can I love my spouse? Be merciful towards them. Then you will see that you'll start loving them. Yeah. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So respect his or her wishes and aspirations. Some people have dreams. They want to do things in life. And so for example, there are individuals that say, well, for example, the money and the security issue. So one likes to spend, the other doesn't like to spend. Yes? So you try to find out, why is this the case? What is their wish? Do they actually want to become better in terms of spending more money or not? And why initially is it rooted in your childhood or not? So you go back to their childhood and find out, well, was your family really spending a lot, being not stingy, but don't spend a lot of money? So is this how you've been brought up? Try to understand each other, right? And there are certain things that are hidden in me, that I have dreams, I have wishes that are hidden inside me. And I want to talk to you about it. Yes? And let's talk about these hidden dreams inside us. And perhaps we can respect these hidden dreams and wishes and hopes. So for example, I want to travel the world. Yes? Let's talk about it. Because sometimes if you suppress these aspirations inside you, you suppress these hopes inside you, what happens is that secondary issues start to rise up. And tertiary issues start to rise up. But let's go to the foundations. What is your dream? Yes? What's your hope? What's your aspiration? I want to be a better mu'min. I want to grow spiritually. That's my aspiration. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's respect each other's aspiration. What is your aspiration? No, okay, let me say what's my aspiration, and let's you say what's your aspiration or dream, right? And let's respect each other's aspiration. And maybe work towards actually accomplishing that particular aspiration. You guys with me? And finally, have that gratitude towards each other. Yes? Count your blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's important sometimes to look at the overall picture. When we have this particular unsolvable problem, right? And we don't have a coping strategy for that unsolvable problem, the problem comes in is that we're looking at it at one particular angle. What we've got to do is zoom out. Yes? And zoom out. There are so many other qualities that your husband has that you're not even seeing it. There's so many other qualities that your wife has that you're not even witnessing it, right? You're just looking at that particular angle because he is speeding. I feel I don't trust him. That's it. But there are so many other reasons. You know, he's made you feel secure. He gives you finances, or you also provide finances. You both are okay in terms of in-laws, things like that. Why is this particular issue? You're making quite a big judgment on the trust, on the issue of trust, right? I'm not saying you can solve it, but you gotta try to zoom out and look at the overall picture. There are other good things about your spouse that you haven't even explored, right? Let's not just focus on the things. So be grateful on the wonderful things, other things that your spouse is also good at. So how many of us actually exchange gratefulness towards each other? When you sit down and you say, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you did this, right? We always nag at each other at the negative points, isn't it? Oh, you always have this and I always have that and you said this and I said that. But if we sit down, and again, if you've taken nothing from this talk, and you want to take one thing, is actually trying to communicate with each other, to find coping mechanisms, right? Let's talk to each other, but without anger, without much emotions. Right. If you think you've reached the end, Allah says, well, think again. He says, if you actually reached the end, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ شِقَاقَ بَيْنِهِمَا فَابْعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. Right? If they both think they've reached the end, you bring someone from her side and someone from his side, sit down to each other. إِن يُرِيدَ إِصْلَاحًا. If they actually want, yes, they want to reach a compromise, if they want to reach a solution, then God will make sure that the solution will be accomplished. He will help them to reach that solution. But the problem is that they both think that there's so many unsolvable problems they have. They reach gridlock, they don't have a coping mechanism. That's it. I don't want to even look at you. I don't want to be with you, right? I can't even stand a day with you, right? But Allah says, okay, sit down, bring some other people, right? So they can also try to help you out, right? But if you both want a solution, I will help you find that particular compromise, right? And trying to make sure that you do this islah, right? Between you two. Yes? So Allah gives that promise. So let's not give up. However, what I will say in terms of solvable, unsolvables, I will add another category, which I say the red flags. They're neither solvable or unsolvable. Yeah? I don't think they're solvable or unsolvable. I call them the red flags, which are what? Physical abuse. Unfortunately, we have domestic abuse, my dear brothers and sisters, in our community, but we don't talk about it. Usually from the men to the women, right? Because they justify it. They say it's written in the Quran. Well, I invite you to revise that. Yes? That the man is allowed to hit the woman. I invite you to revise it. Physical abuse is not allowed. Yes? Psychological abuse is what? When I swear at her or she swears at me and we talk in a very vile language. Yes? That's a red flag. This is psychological abuse. What about cheating? These days, the people are, especially people who are Shia, they say, yeah, it's okay, my wife is not providing for me, so therefore I'm going to go and do temporary marriage. I'm going to go and do mut'ah. Yeah, and that's justifiable, right? I find that, yes, maybe jurisprudentially it's okay, if, of course, there are conditions. But in my very humble world, I think that's a bit of a cheating, isn't it? I think that's cheating. That's a red flag. Yeah? And it's abused. The whole system of mut'ah and temporary marriage is abused. Yeah? I know this might be controversial, but I stand firm with my own opinions. Right? And if you want to challenge me, you're more than welcome to come and speak to me today in the Q&A. Right? I believe that those individuals who are married, they've got unsolvable problems. They're trying to escape from these unsolvable problems by going to do mut'ah and other things with other people behind their wife's back. I find that cheating. That's a red flag. Yes? And also, if it becomes one of the individual actually is not just spiritually low, but actually they go and do a lot of harams. Right? Drinking, God forbid, and doing drugs and doing zina and all these things. Of course, these are red flags. These are not unsolvable, so to speak. Yes? No solvable. These are absolute red flags. So, finally, one take-home message, my dear brothers and sisters, is what? Is that unsolvable problems don't need to be solved. Let's not always give effort to solving unsolvable problems. Right? They just try to work around them. Try to find a coping mechanism. Speak to each other about them. Yeah. So I invite you all, inshallah, after today, all the couples, right, to sit down with each other and list the unsolvable problems and list the solvable problems, right? And try to find coping mechanisms for each one. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. My dear brothers and sisters, of course, on these particular nights, we try to take our hearts towards Karbala. This Karbun wa Bala, this land of purity, this land which in history showed us a change in the course of the direction of our faith. Where Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam took his family and companions and they reached the land of Karbala and he sacrificed his life and his companions and some of his family for our sake, for the sake of the next generation and the generation after that. My dear brothers and sisters, tonight, we will be talking about the mothers of Karbala. Those individuals who sacrifice so much. You don't have to sacrifice your life, my dear brothers and sisters, to try to help an individual. Give time to an individual. Give effort to help others. The mothers of Karbala are not spoken about much, aren't they? Right? Usually we talk about the men and the bravery of the men. Rightly so. But also the mothers of Karbala were also brave. I speak to all the mothers out there. I speak to all the mothers because the mother has a special love towards her child. Yes? Seeing her child go in a battlefield, seeing her child about to be slain, about to be martyred, is a difficult feeling, isn't it? Imagine, oh mothers, that you send your child to a battlefield. But this is not just any battlefield. This is the battlefield towards justice. This is a battlefield towards establishing human rights. This is a battlefield against oppression. How can we, my dear brothers and sisters, the Hussainis, ever forget those mothers of Karbala? On the day of Ashura, mothers of Karbala were preparing their children. What were the mothers telling their children? Were they telling them to be careful, to hide and save their lives? No, they weren't. They were telling their children to sacrifice their life for the sake of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. They were telling them to die. Didn't they love their children? Of course they did. They had the heart of a mother. They were proud of their children. They loved their children very much, my dear brothers and sisters. But then they were telling their children to sacrifice their lives, to die, because they knew about the mission of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. They knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with them. Zainab alayhi salam, and one of her sons, and the other, the son of her husband, they were Aun and Muhammad, the narrations say. They were, one of them was called Aun, one of them was called Muhammad. Reports say that she said, my sons, Aun and Muhammad, on the night of Ashura, tomorrow is the day of battle. Your uncle Hussein's life will be in danger. Let's reflect on this lady, Zainab alayhi salam. What a strong lady. She stood there seeing one by one of her family being slain and martyred in the battle of Karbala. What sort of patience did she have? Oh mothers, what sort of patience did Zainab have? Oh mu'mineen, what sort of heart should she have, where she witnessed the sacrifice of her family right in front of her eyes. My darlings, she's speaking to the Aun and Muhammad. If anything happens to your uncle Hussein while you're still alive, I will be filled with shame. This is what she's telling them. She's not telling them to go and hide. She's not telling them not to go and sacrifice. They were quite young. They were teenagers, right? She told them, I want you to go out there. I want you to fight for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. My Aun and Muhammad, I will not be able to face your grandmother Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha on the day of judgment. Please, my dearest sons, be the first ones to sacrifice your lives for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Since dawn, Zainab reports saying she was watching the bodies being brought to the tent one by one. She called her sons Aun and Muhammad. My sons, what are you waiting for? Why have you not been to the battlefield yet? Go and fight the enemies of Islam. They said, Mother, since dawn we have been to our Hussein, our uncle, many times for permission. The reports say that they wanted to fight, but Abu Abdullah al-Hussein said, no, you are still children. You're still teenagers. I don't want you to come to the battlefield. I want you to take care of Zainab, because she will be alone at the end of this. Zainab called her brother Hussein to her tent and she begged him, oh Hussein, take these individuals, take these teenagers and make sure that they die. They sacrifice themselves for your sakes. It's narrated that Hussein alayhi salam said, Zainab, my sister, jihad is not wajib on children. How can I let my sister's son be killed while I am still alive? My brother Zainab said, I will be filled with shame. Please, brother, let them go. Hussein saw the disappointment on Zainab's face. Her eyes were filled with tears. She wanted them to go to the battlefield. She wanted them to go and sacrifice themselves. Hussein put his arm around Al-Aun, report says, Muhammad, and led them to their horses. Oh mu'mineen. He helped them to mount their horses. And reports say that he said, go and shows those beastie men that you have the blood of Ja'far and Ali in your veins. What sort of teenagers are these, my dear brothers and sisters? So brave to go out there and fight those enemies. Aun and Muhammad looked at their mother and said, Fi amanillah. Oh mother, imagine your son telling you Fi amanillah. That's the last time you see of their childhood. You've never seen them get married. You've never seen them have their own children and live their life. But this is the last time you will see them alive. You tell them, Fi amanillah. They said, Fi amanillah, mother. Fi amanillah. And she told them, Fi amanillah, my son. If the narrations are right, that perhaps one of them was there or both of them were there. And Abbas and Hussein watched these two particular brothers fight so fiercely despite being thirsty. Abbas, who had trained them in the art of sword fighting, was filled with pride. Umar Sa'ad is Yazid's commander. He got worried. He saw these particular individuals, they're fighting furiously. He orders his soldiers to separate the two brothers and then attack them from all sides. Aun and Muhammad were separated. Each one was surrounded by Yazid's soldiers. The two brothers were attacked by horsemen running from one side to the other. Aun and Muhammad were attacked with arrows, sword and spears and daggers from all sides. How much can two young children, thirsty and hungry, how much can they take? As they fell, they called out for their uncle. Oh Ammar, they recited. Oh Ammar, they shouted. Oh Ammar, come quickly. Oh my uncle, come and help us. Hussein and Abbas rushed to the battlefield. The children were severely wounded. Remember, they're just children. They were taking their last breaths and they said, Ammar, give our salams to our mother Zainab. Al-Hussein alayhi salam and Al-Abbas carried the two young bodies to the tent. Ali Al-Akbar cried out, my brothers Aun and Hussein have been killed. Then Zainab alayhi salam, she heard the cry from her tent. Reports say that she did not cry. She laid her musalla and performed two sajda. What patience did she have, this individual, this mother? Ya Allah has narrated she has said, Ya Allah, I thank you for accepting my sacrifice. Ya Allah, I am proud of my two sons who have given their lives for Islam. Reminds me, my dear brothers and sisters, of the so many mothers that have given their lives in jihad in Iraq and all the other countries. They gave them for the sacrifice of Islam. We must always, my dear brothers and sisters, remind ourselves that there were mothers. These are the mothers of Zainab. So much patience they had, so much blessings they had in their heart. وَإِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Raise your hands, my dear brothers and sisters, in supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are holy moments, inshaAllah. Our dua will be accepted. By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask him, oh Allah, hasten the arrival of our 12th Imam, Ya Allah. Allahumma ajil waliyik al-faraj, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, give us the opportunity to visit the shrines of our Imams, Ya Allah. Allahumma give shifa to all those individuals who are ill with COVID, cancer, mental illnesses and all other illnesses, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, give all our shabab, all our youth, the best education and the best direction towards you, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, help us to get closer to you, Ya Allah. بحق Ali Muhammad. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.